Well, hey everybody, welcome back to So You Want to Be in Ministry. I'm Tim, and we are all about honoring faithfulness in ministry. We are excited about who we get to talk to today. His name is Mike Brockmeier. He is the youth pastor at Calvary Baptist in Edwardsville. He's been there for almost 2 decades, and they have a staff that's been together for a decade and a half. It's approaching a decade and a half, so almost 15 years. And I just wanted him to come on to share some insights with us about how he's seen youth ministry change over the years, how he maybe he's changed some things on how he's approached it. But I just wanted to gain some insight from somebody who has been able to stay at one place for a long period of time with the other guys on the staff. And so let's get into this interview with Mike. Well, hey, Mike, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you on today, man.
And thanks, Tim. I appreciate it. I'm honored to be a part of it, and hopefully I can be encouragement to somebody out there. And love what you're doing, and glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, man. Well, you are going to be an encouragement to somebody out there because it's just telling your story. Anybody telling their story, the ups and downs and all the stuff, it's going to resonate with somebody. So I was very appreciative that you were willing to come on. Now, I do know you from, we were both youth pastors together back in the day.
Right.
Very similar towns. We got to do several youth events together, all kinds of, we were part of that. We had a unique youth pastor kind of, I don't know, core or something. There's like 6 or 7 of us that just met all the time. I think that's unique. That doesn't always happen. Yeah. So,
I agree. And I'm thankful for that. It was, just the pastors being able to not just work together on stuff. I mean, it was events, and that's good, but I really enjoyed and appreciated the fellowship and the encouragement that came along with that. It was really, really great.
It was. I think it was beneficial to all of us to just know that there were other people in there with us the whole time. So tell us, how did you get to this point? So give us like the highlight, the bullet points of how you went from wherever to a youth pastor at Calvary.
Yeah, so, I mean, the short answer is just basically straight out of seminary.
Okay.
I was nearing the end of my MDiv, and, so look, it's time to start looking. So I kind of started, looking on SBC's website and state conventions and things like that.
Yep.
Somewhere in that, I had gotten the idea or the advice that I shouldn't be the one submitting my own resume, that it ought to come from somebody else.
Okay.
I don't know exactly where that came from. I don't think that was the best advice. But
there you go. You've already given a good piece of advice for people.
I guess. But that said, so Calvary got my resume. To be honest, it's a bit of a mystery exactly how.
Okay.
Came on, went through their interviews and came on site for in-person interviews because I was living in Louisville for seminary, and so came here as that was kind of wrapping up. And they, talking with them, I'm curious. I don't know that I ever asked, how did you guys get my resume? Well, we think it came from, I don't even remember what the source was. And I was like, I didn't give that person or that organization, whatever it was, my resume. So we just all kind of chalked up to a God thing. So that was kind of interesting, but kind of a funny story that goes along with that. So they, in the process of that, they really wanted someone that was going to be committed kind of long term. They didn't want somebody who's going to come in and things go well, and then they're just looking for the next bigger, better, whatever that looks like thing. Mm-hmm. And so they actually asked me to sign a 5-year contract.
Interesting. Okay.
Which I had, I'm totally green. I have no idea what's going on in all this stuff. And, but I had not heard of anything like that before. And so went to kind of a mentor of mine down in Louisville. He was a professor at the seminary. He was our Bible study teacher at our church, our small group. And, he had several seminary students in the class. And so I knew he would, he's invested in us and want to know how things are going, those that are also looking for jobs. And, asked me how things are going. I was like, well, I think things are going pretty well with this church. But got this unique thing. They've actually, kind of explained this. They've asked me to sign a 5-year contract, and it wasn't anything like completely etched in stone, but just a general commitment and things. And so I just asked him, like, what do you think about that? He's like, oh, I'll tell you what I think about it. I said, what? He said, run. Like, okay. And I understood where he was coming from.
Yep.
Had probably seen or heard of instances where guys get in a really bad situation and they're literally stuck.
Yeah.
And so I genuinely took that to heart and really appreciated his care and investment in that.
Yep.
But in the process, just really got to a point, just really felt like I understood the heart of the church, that they wanted someone that wanted to be invested long term. And that was part of my heart and my desire, and just kind of felt like, I think this is actually something that's in alignment, something that's a fit, and that therefore I was comfortable with. I mean, I had a little fun with my pastor as that 5 years was nearing its end. Like, well, I'm about to be a free agent. We may need to, talk about some negotiations here. But, but no, obviously it's worked out. But who knew back then that we'd be here now this way?
How many years have you been there now?
It's been 18 years.
Yeah.
So that was 2006. Came on in August of 06, and 18 years later, still here, loving it, and thankful for it. So God's been faithful. God's been good. And it's blessed.
Yeah, man. That is so funny. That would be the same advice I'd probably generally give to somebody. Yeah.
I mean, I get it, right?
Yeah.
That's not the norm.
No.
But like I said, I felt like I understood the heart behind it, and that was
what was the heart that you saw in Calvary, that you were just like, I get it, but man, I just see this, and I just don't think it's what you would normally think about a 5-year contract.
Yeah. I mean, it was a step out in faith for them. So our senior pastor, Rob Snyder, had been here for about 2 or 3 years. He was the first full-time staff member that the church had ever had.
I did not know that. So
I knew they were taking a big step, not only to bring on a second staff member, but to bring me on full-time from the get-go was a big step of faith, and a big-time investment in youth ministry, and wanting to make that an important part of what they were doing as a church. And so I think that was a lot of it. But some of it's just, asking the questions and having those good, genuine conversations in the interview process to, they're interviewing me, but that's got to be a two-way street, right? Mm-hmm. And so just trying to, whether it's in those, over the phone interviews, getting written questionnaires and trying to read in between the lines what they're really asking, which I didn't always do well in, but just really trying to ask those good questions, hear their heart, and see where they're at.
What would be
felt like it was fit?
Yeah, what would be 2 or 3 questions? So as you've mentored other people that are going in for interviews, or maybe have talked to you about different interviews they've had with churches and stuff, what would be 2 or 3 questions that you're like, have you found out this? Like, what would be those things that you would encourage somebody to make sure they find out? That I know you're out of practice, you haven't done it for like 18 years, but
yeah, I am pretty much. I mean, getting to know the pastor, it was an interesting situation in that, again, maybe something that's done differently here than it maybe some other places is, Pastor Rob was on the search team.
Okay.
And that was the same. He and I were both on the search team when we brought in our music guy, Brian Bond, a few years after I got here. Not to be, overlording over anything, but we're invested in this, and we want to, be a part of it. And so, being able to get to know him, hear his heart for his vision for the church, for the ministry, where things have been, where they're going, some of um, what have been some of the struggles, um, and how they've dealt with them. Um, that was kind of part of it for me. Like I said, there was some of the written questionnaire stuff that I thought I knew what was going on and why they were asking certain questions. And in the process of those interviews, whether it was with the group or being able to talk with Pastor Rob individually, kind of hearing some of the church's story and history, especially recent stuff, and some things that had happened, and they'd had some issues with some Bible study teachers wanting to really push some certain things.
Yep.
And so I thought they were asking questions for a totally different reason, and honestly had told some friends in Louisville, I'm not sure this is going to be it. And turned out that the story behind that, the reason behind that, was completely different.
Yeah.
And was actually something that I was completely on board with. But being able to ask those questions of, okay, what's the story? Where have you been? Where have you come from? What have been some struggles? And just kind of, getting to know them, the heart behind it.
Yeah, it sounds like you were bold enough to ask questions that are often difficult to ask. Like those aren't easy questions to like dig a little bit
Sure.
or get there. But it also sounds like they were pretty transparent about their history and
Yes.
who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I did want to, make sure that, like I said, that interview process it's a two-way street.
Yeah.
That's good to remember, but I'm definitely thankful, like you said, for their openness, their transparency, and kind of some of the different things that have been going on. And that was good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So you and Rob, and remind me, the music guy, Brian, you guys have been together for 15 years, right?
So altogether 13. So Brian's
Okay.
been here 13.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm at 18. Pastor Rob's about 21.
So that is a long time to have your core staff together. Give us some insights. How do you guys do that for this long? Like, give us the secret that the rest of us can make it almost 2 decades together.
I don't know that there's like a secret.
Okay. Let's do this. What have been the?
I wish I could. I think some of it is honestly, and maybe this sounds cliche. I hope not, but like it's just the Lord's blessing that.
Okay.
And I think maybe part of that is the process that we've gone through in interview stuff has been open enough and thorough enough that we know what we're getting into.
Okay.
When we get there. Mm-hmm. I guess maybe this is going to sound like maybe an odd analogy. So my son is now 19, just graduated high school last year, worked for Chick-fil-A here in Edwardsville.
All right.
For several months before he graduated. He had applied there a couple of times and had heard nothing back and was like, I can't even get a call back. So at one point, kudos to him, he went in and kind of just went in and said, hey, I've tried applying, haven't heard back, just kind of wondering if there was, any openings or whatever, and got to talk with kind of the owner operator. And long story short, found out they had not had hardly any turnover in like the year or whatever that they had been open. They were thorough and, mindful as they were bringing people on, and they treated their people well. And so basically nobody had left. And there had not been a need. And so maybe there are some similar things here where the interview process was open enough that we knew we were on the same page going in. So I think that was helpful. But man, it's thankful for a church that has treated us well, that has loved us well. And so we want to be here. We're invested. We love each other. We try and encourage each other. We help each other out. If there's ways we can backfill for each other, or, help each other do each other's jobs. And yet at the same time, Pastor Rob's great about it. If this is your area, I'm gonna let you call the ball. And so kind of having some of that balance of we've each got our roles, but we're all cheering each other on and backing each other up in whatever ways we can within that.
You just brought something else. It's easy to look at the three of you, which I just made the mistake of, but you just brought up the church giving you the opportunity to stay together, which is another huge deal.
Sure. Yeah.
That is a big deal that they are invested in all of you.
Yeah, they really are. It's easy to say that coming out of Pastor Appreciation Month next month. They just overwhelmed us. I mean, seriously, they've been so good to us, and I'm really really thankful for church and how they have loved us and our families over the years.
Yeah, man.
I think it's how it ought to be. That's what the church should look like.
It should.
In a lot of ways, and so I'm thankful that we get to be a part of a church that has done that.
Alrighty, so give us some insight. How have you grown? How have you seen the church grow? And I don't mean numerically. I mean whatever that can mean.
Yeah.
How have you seen that from year 1 to year 20? Like, what are some things you've seen in yourself, and maybe what are some things that you've seen in the church or even the youth?
So, yeah, I think those are good questions. I think for me personally, some of it has just been priorities.
Okay.
Whether that's little things like valuing reading. I was not a reader growing up, and it's still not something that just comes super easily to me to devote time to that. But kind of in concert with that, being willing to give up lesser things.
Okay.
Maybe it sounds, but like less time watching television.
Yeah.
Or I love sports. I know we would talk about that a lot as we got to spend time together years ago and things like that. Big sports fan, love playing fantasy sports, and at some point it was like,
yeah.
I gotta back out of this. There was just came a time where it's like, okay, like this is fun. There's nothing inherently wrong with it.
Yep.
But it can be a time sucker. And so, one example, but being willing to say no to things, give up things that are going to allow you more time, more energy for just being productive as a person, more time for family, and residually with those things, you've also got more time and are better equipped for ministry. So I think that's been one area of growth. I think that doesn't mean I've got it all figured out right. It's still learning, still growing, still working through a lot of these things. But I think, like, for me personally, and this is, applicable to ministry, but some of this may be more applicable to youth ministry, but the ability to sympathize and empathize with people where they're at. Mm-hmm. Understanding that everybody's got a different story. Everybody's got a different life story, a different path to how they came to know the Lord, or how they came to be attending church, or whatever that looks like for them. Learning more how to meet people where they're at. Not everybody grew up in the Southern Baptist Christian church bubble that I did. And so, being able to see that and understand that has been a growth point. But also being able to empathize and just kind of understand, especially for youth ministry, for parents of teenagers. My wife and I have laughed a lot the last several years of things that we knew in theory, and that we would, try to encourage parents that are living with teenagers. I say all this, obviously, I love teenagers. I love what I do.
Yeah.
I love the teenagers in our church, and I love my own kids.
Yeah.
I have two kids. One just exited the youth group and is off in his first year of college. The other is my daughter's in the youth group now. It's different when I've got teenagers in my own house.
Yeah.
And just the things that they're walking through and the challenges that come with that time of life, being able to experience some of that, myself, and how I can then relate to the parents and encourage them. It's there's difficulties, I guess you could say. There's challenges with raising teenagers.
Yep. I'm there right now too, man.
But being able to connect with parents and encourage parents.
How have you seen youth shift over that time? So going back to the mid 2000s to mid 2020s.
Certainly, the growth of everything digital.
Okay. Yep.
Just in culture at large, but certainly within teenagers, and to a large degree, therefore, how we connect with them is different.
Okay.
And yet at the same time, I've had to learn some of the tech stuff that I'm not a techie by nature.
I've seen your social media. You're doing fine. You're doing fine, man.
I like to say I'm an introvert in real life and an introvert on social media. I read a lot more than I say. But at the same time, I guess the challenge is still, I still feel like the greatest connections and the greatest fruit in ministry comes not from digital stuff. It's still those face-to-face times. It's still genuine love, genuine connection with real people. So finding ways to make those connections, making time to be with the students, with their families, even in a digital world, is part of the job description still.
How do you insert yourself into their lives so that they know that you genuinely do love them and care for them?
Yeah, one thing that I've always loved doing is finding the things that they're doing, and going and cheering them on.
Yeah.
It sounds like not a big deal, but making time to do those sorts of things. Hey, this guy's playing football this year. I'm a sports fan. I'll go watch. Yeah. And whatever that is, sports, band, drama, whatever. And I started that thinking, that'll be great in time with the kids. It by and large, it's not time with them because they're out on the field or whatever doing their thing. My presence there is, I think it does make an impact. It's also, by and large, it's time with parents. Yep. It's time with others in the family.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's really kind of a win-win in that of being able to show the kids, hey, I'm cheering for you. I love you, and I want to see you do well. But it's also, more face-to-face time with their families, and that's something that I've tried to grow in, and being able to invest in those families and encourage those parents outside of just the time that we have here with the youth group.
Yeah.
Being able to impact that on multiple levels, hopefully.
Yeah, man. I agree with that. That's kind of the approach I took when I was in youth ministry as well. What is one tool or lesson that you've learned along your journey here in ministry that you wish you would have had from the beginning?
So many, I guess. There's just, we think we've got it all figured out when we're young, and the more we're in this, the more we realize I'm so just still figuring this out. But looking back, I think one of the things that I've seen bear fruit that I was maybe reluctant for initially was being open to and looking for opportunities for one-on-one or maybe one-on-two mentoring type of relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I think initially, look, we have an obvious responsibility and obligation to the group at large,
mm-hmm.
and I don't want to diminish that.
Yeah.
And I also didn't want to be seen as, oh, he's their favorite or something like that.
Yep.
But at some point, it was like, I think I want to explore this. And the times that I've been able to have those type of relationships with guys, obviously, like let's make that clear that I'm not. Yeah, there's just boundaries that we've got to maintain
Yep.
for our own good and for the health of the church and all those sorts of things. But the value, the fruitfulness of those relationships has been really encouraging. The growth and the fruit that I've seen in the lives of these young men has been evident. It was something that helped to better equip them to be leaders within the group, which I'm a big believer in. It's being a somewhat smaller church. It's not. There's ebbs and flows of how many people are here, or
Yep.
We've got instances where we have pretty much all middle schoolers and very few high schoolers, or whatever that looks like within the life of a youth ministry.
Yep.
But having leaders within the group, their own peers that are following Jesus and wanting to encourage their peers to do the same, having those leaders in that group can be really, really huge. And so those types of relationships help to build those leaders, which was great. But man, it was a real blessing to me as well. The things that I learned, the accountability that came with that to a degree, the challenge that came from that was really fruitful also. So I guess I wish I would have kind of been looking for those sorts of things earlier, because I've seen the fruit that can come from that and being open to that.
Yeah, that's good. What are one or two books that have really impacted your ministry, or maybe even your personal life?
Yeah, like I said, I wish there was more. That's something I'm still growing in. One initially is Experiencing God by Henry Blackaby.
Yep.
Partly because that was the book that God used to call me into ministry as a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
Just working through that with my youth group, and God kind of used that to show, hey, this is the path that I've got for you, and certainly lots of principles in that. The big one of see where God's working and join Him in it.
Yep.
So that's been probably pretty formational for a lot of people. It's 30 years now or something.
Oh yeah, it's been a while.
Gosh, it was like 30 years ago when I was going through that book, and that just hit me.
Sorry.
I think I've loved and appreciated a lot of books and resources from Greg Steer.
Oh yeah,
who I know you know well.
Love that guy. Absolutely love that guy.
A lot of their curriculum, some of the books that he's written, for youth ministry, which I think are applicable for all of us.
It is.
For youth ministers, have been really good, really helpful. And one other one that has really made an interesting impact on me. It's it's not a ministry book. It's not even written by a Christian.
Okay.
It's a parenting book.
Okay.
But it's called The Self-Esteem Trap. It's by a psychologist or psychiatrist, I used to mix them up, named Polly Young Eisendrath. But sort of, she noticed trends in the young people that she was counseling. And in the midst of all that our culture has done to talk about the importance of self-esteem and how she doesn't see that, and started to do some research as to why that is. So really some just interesting kind of cultural dynamics, interesting, parenting principles is really what the book's about at the heart, but it revealed some things that I think were applicable for not just me as a parent, but things that I could encourage other parents with in how I interacted with students.
Yeah.
And one of the big points that she made that I think is really important for the church as a whole, important for parents, important for students to know, is what she calls interdependence. And just man, driving home the idea to our kids that we all need each other. You have people that lean on you, that rely on you for things. There's a value in that. And you have people that you are relying on, that you need for things in your life. And kind of gaining a greater understanding of the importance of those things. I thought it was just a good, if simple, but good insight that I've kind of tried to encourage our students and our families with.
Hey, I'll take research backing up that we are the body of Christ, dependent on every body part. Like
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. That'll preach, right?
Yeah,
like I
absolutely.
Said, it was not like a source that yeah. I mean, it's an interesting source, a secular.
Yeah.
But the data backs it up, and it's. Which should not surprise us, because that's exactly what God's word teaches us.
Yeah,
we should expect these things to be the case.
Yeah, it's cool.
But they were good insights.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that book out, because I have not read that book.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be
definitely
checking that one out. Well, every ministry and every person that has been in ministry for as long as we have, we know there's ups and downs. There's gonna be mountaintop moments where you're just like, I don't think it gets better than this, and we're gonna have valley or maybe like crevice moments, because it's deeper than the valley, where we're
Absolutely.
like, I'm the most worthless person.
Yes. Yeah. What C.S. Lewis in Screw Tape Letters talks about the law of undulation.
Okay.
Right? All of us, and it's absolutely, obviously true in ministry. There are ups, there are downs, there are peaks, there are valleys.
Yes. So there's other pastors out there and other people in ministry that are going through one of the deep valleys, and they're discouraged, and they may be even considering, like, maybe I'm just done. Maybe I'm not good at this, or that maybe God's call wasn't real in my life, or whatever. They're struggling. What's a piece of encouragement that you could give to them if they're listening to this?
Yeah, I think we've all been there, like you said. It's the nature of life, like I said, but it's absolutely the nature of ministry. I think something that's been, I don't know, at least helpful for me is focus on being faithful. Faithful to the Lord, faithful to your work, faithful to your people, and leaving the results to God. I know that's easier said than done. I get it. But yeah, knowing those ups and downs are going to come, knowing that's just part of the way it works. But knowing that in the midst of all that, remembering that God is at work behind the scenes through all of it. I can look back over these 18 years and see that a lot of the greatest victories that I've been able to be a part of are not because I did something just absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
But because God was working behind the scenes in a way or in people that I had no idea about.
Yeah.
And he just kind of said, here you go. And so, look, he gets the credit, but in terms of, a point of encouragement from that, keep working, but expect that this is going to sound contradictory maybe, but expect that God's going to surprise you. Don't be surprised when God surprises you, because we know that he's working in so many ways that we're not either able to see, not aware of. He's doing his thing, so you keep doing yours and trust that he's working through it, and working behind the scenes through all of it.
Absolutely, man.
Cool to see him do that.
Yeah, that's cool too that he talks about faithfulness. I agree with that. The whole podcast, this whole podcast came about because I just wanted to honor the faithfulness of ministry. So that's my goal, is to just keep telling stories of people that are just trying to be faithful.
Absolutely, man. We all gain encouragement from that, right? Of hearing others that are walking through similar things and being reminded. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I appreciate you so much for being on today.
Absolutely, brother. It's good to see you and talk to you, and thankful for what you're doing with this.
Yeah.
And thankful for those pastors out there, and so believe that we can continue the work together. That's
the goal, man. Let's finish strong.
Absolutely. Yeah, all the way. All
righty, dude. We'll see you.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Good to see you.
I really appreciated Mike just sharing with us his practical wisdom, just very practical things, his heart for the people in his church. And honestly, I think you even heard the heart that their people have for them. They've done a great job of just building a strong community there at their church. I'm so grateful that he came on to share some of his wisdom with us. Next time, we have a pretty cool guest that he's written a book. His name's Matt Lapine. He's written a book. I'm looking forward to that interview because it is depth. There's a lot of depth to it, and I can't wait to share that interview with you. So I'll see you next time. Until then, make sure you like, subscribe, share, do all the things. I hope this continues to encourage you, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.